What up, ninjas? Out for the walk with the babies. How we all doing today? I dropped my wife off yesterday for her eye doctor appointment. Unfortunately, she doesn't have great eyes. I've always had 20/20 vision until I turned 40, and then I needed reading glasses, like probably most of you. But she's always had to wear contacts. So, I dropped her off, and she went and did her appointment. And when she came out, I asked her how it went, and she's like, "Oh, there's a little change in my prescription for my lenses." And it just kind of got me thinking about the idea of the lens, how we see the world, the lens, the eyes. And this is an interesting conversation that for sure is relatable to both BJJ and life. Like most things, I think Jiu-Jitsu is this wonderful metaphor for everything that we do in our life, and it serves us both on and off the mat. So I'm always looking for those great lessons that transcend beyond the mats and transcend into the mats from my life as well. So the lens, it got me thinking. Like, I remember when my other children were like a year old, and I remember we were going to take my daughter to the zoo, and somebody said, "Oh, you're taking her to the zoo?" So you can hear little babies right there. You're going to take your daughter to the zoo. She's not even going to understand it. Why are you going to the zoo? She's not even going to get it. I was like, no, she's going to get it based on the lens that she sees the world through right at that point, right? As a year old. In fact, I would argue that her lens is probably even better than ours at that age, because she's seeing things in this beautiful first time pure form. So maybe she's not getting like, oh, that's a bear and that's this species or that, right? But she was certainly smiling and laughing and having fun and seeing all kinds of cool colors and shapes and seeing people happy. So, and if she went to the zoo at 2 years old and 6 years old and 8 years old and 15 and an adult, it would probably change a bunch as far as how she perceives that experience. Which is a lot like Jiu-Jitsu, right? Like the way that you perceive Jiu-Jitsu as a white belt is going to be very different than how you perceive it as an even 3-stripe white belt, right? When you first start, you're like, I'll try to walk under lots of these cool trees like usual. You don't need to see my head the whole time. The trees are much more beautiful. What are we talking about? See, I get distracted by all the pretty colors and stuff like that. Now, the lens, the white belt lens versus the maybe 3-stripe white belt lens, right? Like when you first start, you're like in this total survival mode all the time. Maybe even just getting yourself to get to class and like, oh my God, I can't even believe I'm doing this. This is so crazy. This is so wild, blah, blah, blah. And getting to the point where like, oh man, I can do this. I'm doing this. This is dope. And then getting to the point where you're just like, as I call it, like at that 3-stripe white belt, you're just like in the mud, like you're in the dirt and you don't even care. You're just out there playing with everybody else. You're not worried about getting dirty anymore. You're not worried about sweat getting on you. You're doing jiu-jitsu. And that lens will change. Like it's going to change at blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, black belt, and even through black belt, When I was a lower belt, I'm going to make a little adjustment here. Our blanket's getting caught inside of our stroller. So there's real parent stuff that happens here. Yeah. All right, there we go. Now we can move again. We were getting stuck in the tire. Slowing things down. All right, here we go. So, the way you perceive the world of jiu-jitsu is certainly going to change as you progress through the training. And again, even at black belt, like the way that I teach, think, see jiu-jitsu now, 8 or 9 years after getting my black belt is very different than when I was a first new black belt, sort of this like fresh black belt, right? Very different now for me. And it's going to change like that very dramatically at the lower belt levels too. Like you're going to, even how you perceive like a technique, the way you look at an armbar as a beginner is going to be certainly different than how you look at it as a blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, and black belt. How you even think about it, the details that you can show and teach and share, all of that is and master is all gonna change as you progress throughout the training. So it's important to acknowledge that. But the real important thing is to recognize is that where you are right now is not where you're going to be in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Like, for example, if you're like a brand new white belt and you're like, there's no way I could do what that purple belt's doing. You're right. There's no way that you could do that right now. And it's important to add that phrase to everything that every challenge that stands in front of you. Yes, I can't do that right now. I can't do a flying armbar right now. So your lens will change, and it'll change based on your confidence and your skill set and how you progress, throughout the training. So it's important to know that where you are now is not where you'll be, even in 6 months, 12 months, a year, than where you are, in this moment. So important to acknowledge that so that you don't get stuck. You don't get stuck in the mud, because it's easy to get stuck in the mud. It's easy to oh man, put up walls. I can't do this. That's going to be too challenging. It's going to be too hard. And just build wall after wall after wall after wall to the point where, of course you can't see beyond the walls because all you're doing is building walls. So instead of building walls, build bridges to those walls and through those walls. Don't look at those as these impassable obstacles, but as obstacles that over time you will be able to conquer, master, and, flourish at. Where you start from is not where you'll be. Do you guys hear that? Where you start from is not where you'll be if you're doing it right. So yeah, that prescription, that lens will change over time. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because if we know that the prescriptions change, then we know that we can start seeing things a lot clearer than perhaps we could have maybe before, right? So it's important we have the right prescription, because if we don't have the right prescription, man, it's going to be difficult getting around. It's going to be difficult overcoming any challenge, any obstacle that we face in our life. So, all right, ninjas. It's good talking today. I want you guys to have an awesome week of training. Attack those goals. Know that your lens will change, and that's a good thing. And that where you are now is not where you're going to be in the future, because you're going to be constantly moving forward, and you're going to keep going, my friends. All right, happy training. Os.